and welcome back to the Practical Paper Crafter. Today I'm going to be making a video for you making what I felt like looked like old-fashioned Valentine's cards. I was getting my February cards ready to go, and I wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit old-fashioned. And so here are my examples, and then we are going to be making one on screen so you can see how I've done it. And as always, I'm using Graphic45 paper. I'm using the Elegance collection and the Mon Amor collection. These are older collections. But the good thing about Graphic45, like if you take a look at this, this is the Elegance collection and this is the Mon Amor collection, and you can see that these papers work together really well. And as a matter of fact, I'm not really sure on the cards which I use for which, but I am going to make one on screen. I have been doing a lot of scrap journaling lately, and that was kind of my inspiration, kind of that more vintage old-fashioned look. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to start. Now, okay, so I wanted to make these old-fashioned looking. So, sorry if my camera's going crazy. Sorry. Tried to fix it, made it worse. Okay, so here's let's see, how long is this piece of paper? It is going to be 12 by 6 about. Piece of card, craft cardstock. And now if you notice on these, the hearts don't look perfect. These were not cut out with a die cut. So you can see this one is like thinner. This one's a little bit kind of like and it's a little bit lopsided. And I wanted to do that to like make my own heart shapes, just to make it look a little bit more old-fashioned. So basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna fold this paper in half. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because you're gonna cut a heart out of this. And then you're going to get whatever you use to make your creases. And you're gonna crease it down. Now, what I did was I made my heart going this way, so you want the top of the heart at your fold line, so that when you open it, it's stuck together right here. You see how that's stuck together? So what I did to create the heart shape was, first of all, since this was, let's see, I think this is 6 inches. Yeah, this is 6 inches. So I marked it, and I like this kind of T-square thing because it helps me make my lines straight. So I marked it at 3, and then I marked it down here at 3, and then I just took my T ruler, and again, this doesn't have to be perfect. This was just how I made the heart. I didn't just cut it out. So then you have your line down at the bottom, and what basically is going to happen, oh, can you see? Okay, so what's basically going to happen is the bottom of your heart is going to be right here. And then for the top, I kind of would draw a line on how I wanted, like where I wanted the widest part of the heart. So I think you can see on some of these. Okay, so on the back you can see my lines that I drew. You can see the line going across here where the widest part of the heart is, and I thought, well, it's on the back, so it doesn't matter. So basically, and the reason I did this, you can cut out a heart with just a die cut, and you just leave the top of the die cut on the fold so that when you cut it, it doesn't cut all the way through, or you roll it right up to the line of where it cuts, and so it doesn't cut all the way through. So basically what I did was I just tried to make both sides, you know, even. And that's not always like the easiest thing, but like as long as you make the widest part of the heart kind of there and there, so you see then you have your half. But of course I don't want to cut it in, I don't want to fold it in half, because then you're going to have weird fold lines and all that jazz. So So you kind of go like this, make sure it goes over the top, and then, you know, you just want to draw your, oh, I need more lead. Draw your heart around, and this one looks a little bit maybe fatter than that one, so you just try to even it out. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's kind of like the whole idea of doing this more old-fashioned. I just thought it would make it look a little bit more vintage if I drew the hearts myself and made them a little bit less uniform than what they would normally be. And then you just cut out your heart. This one I could have done a little bit better because I'll smooth that out. I'll show you. And again, it does not have to be perfect, as you can see. And boom. So if you folded this in half, it would not look the same. And I usually try to leave a little bit more than that, but I didn't draw my heart all the way to the top, and I don't want to. It'll look good once you get all the paper on it and everything. Okay, so clean off your area, move your stuff out of the way so you don't have stuff all up in your biz. Okay, so now basically what happened was I had these two paper collections, and I was like, well, you know, how am I going to do this? And so basically what I did is I started with, so one of the great things about Graphic45 is they always have cut apart pages. And a lot of people just use those cut aparts. I'll show you the partial cut apart pages that I have left. So they have these type of things where you can cut around them, and you have like little, like ephemera pieces basically that you can use for different things. You can just use them as card fronts. You can use them as card centers. These are all a little bit large. Usually as a card maker, I would get the 8x8 from Graphic45 because those cards are usually, I did use one of those. You probably saw that on one of the cards that I did. So I start with a cut apart. I think I'm going to start with this one. So if you look at these other cards, if you can see that this was my cut apart piece. Since I'm gonna put my other items over here, I usually put my cut apart piece on this side. I'll show you a couple of other examples. So you see as I'm patching, let me show you one that's not done so you can kind of see. So you see the cut apart right here. So I put the cut apart on this side, and then I pieced in my other pieces. So basically you're kind of doing like a little patchwork. So, and it's important you get straight lines. So if you're going to be trimming around your pieces, I would definitely use your paper trimmer just to give you a straighter line. Okay, so you have your cut apart piece that you want to use, and on most of them I put my paper on the side that I had put pencil marks on, then you don't have to cover it. And kind of what I did is I went around the piece I wanted to glue down with a pencil, and so I know where to put the glue, because if I put the glue on the back of this and part of it hangs out, it just kind of makes a mess. And I'm using this super cheap glue, and I know what you're thinking. Wait, you're thinking, why didn't I dust this? Why didn't I ink the edges? Oh, I'm doing it right now. Okay, so I'm gonna ink the edge. Okay, and then I'm gonna take my super cheap glue. And the reason why I'm doing it with this, first of all, craft cardstock doesn't wrinkle up as much as other kinds of cardstock. And for this that I'm doing, it's not going to matter as much, and you'll see that here once I kind of, and this gives you, I think this gives you a little bit more time, I guess. And it's okay if you get a little bit of glue seepage, as Natasha from Treasure Book says, because you're just going to be covering this whole thing with the glue. So then I just take my piece. Let me make sure you can see what I'm doing. I take my piece and I glue it down, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite finds at a secondhand store. This is like an old-fashioned ink brayer. Do you remember, like in 7th grade, when they made us make a block, like a stamp block with like this piece of wood that had the rubber on the bottom, and you had to take those little tools and etch out your stamp, and then you would run the ink on it with this, and then you would stamp it down like wood block stamping or whatever it's called. Well, I found this at a secondhand store, and this thing is so good at just smashing things down and flattening them, and just, it's like the perfect brayer. And this, it's not like the ones they make now. Sorry if my camera's going. The ones they make now are like really hard. It's like hard. This is like soft rubber, if you can see that. So it's a little bit easier to maneuver. Now, I just want to remind you that you can use any kind of paper you want, and I am going to show you that I have just a mess of papers, just offcuts that I've kept. I mean, this is what your paper looks like too. I know it. No need to be ashamed. Now this one has like square edges, so I might use this one, so I probably want to keep that one. Ignore my mess and my offcuts. You know you have them too. And then if you're not going to use some of your offcuts, you can always use like the B side. I'm definitely going to use that one, so I don't want to use that. Let me see what else I have. So like if you have something like this, basically I would trim here, and then you have a piece you can use either side, which I'm going to do really quick. Okay, so now you have this kind of shape here. And this one I would probably do, I could do this with, but I would probably go right up to the edge. So I'm going to mark that where I'm going to put it. And then I ink my edge. And I've made about 9 of these, but for my cards this month, I'm probably going to need another, probably 10-ish more. And I know it costs a lot to send a card, but what do we make cards for if not to share them with ones we love and send them little messages? So basically, this is the process. You just find the pieces that you like, and you just kind of put it together like a little patchwork. I'm sure, I mean, this is not a new idea. I'm sure you've all done this. You might call it scrap busting, is what it's kind of commonly known as, is like, you know, a scrap busting project. So I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to get out my 1980s brayer and smash that down. Okay, so now I'm just going to put the rest of the pieces on here, and I'm going to speed that up super fast so you can kind of watch me put the pieces on there. And then once all the pieces are on there, I'm going to slow it down and finish the rest of the process and show you how I finished making it. Okay, so now we see our entire heart is covered. If you flip it over, you'll see that we obviously have a lot hanging over the edge. And it kind of looks like a hot mess right now, but don't worry. And it looks a little wiggly wobbly, but that's okay. So you're just going to take your scissors. You guys obviously all know how to do this. And you're just going to take your scissors. Try not to cut the heart. Just try to cut right to the side of the heart. And you're just going to cut off that extra. For some reason, this process is very satisfying for me. It's like you go from chaos to order in like 20 seconds. Okay, so we're going to chop these off. The hardest spot to chop off was between the heart. I guess the heart cleavage, if you will. So, just gonna, oh, I cut some of the heart, I could tell. Okay, and we're just gonna cut off our pieces, and then we're just gonna go right here. And we're gonna cut off these pieces. And now we're gonna flip her over. I mean, look how imperfect this heart is, but you can see it just adds to the vintagey look, in my opinion. I'm gonna keep that one, and I'll probably keep that one too. Sometimes I think I keep too much of my scraps, but then these projects come up and you're like, well, maybe I didn't keep too much. Okay, now we're gonna flip it over, and this is what it looks like. Isn't that pretty? It's just like a little patchwork quilt of all your pieces, and they're all stuck down. It feels pretty good. It feels pretty stable, pretty dry. Okay, now if you notice, with these ones, I did take it to my sewing machine and I did sew around. So that is what I'm gonna do next. That's the next step, is to sew around. There's two other things you've got to do, and that is to add your inside pocket. Now, the reason I add an inside pocket is because if you look at this card and you actually want to write a letter to someone, how are you going to do that? I mean, you can't write on this bumpy thing. So you're going to create a pocket so you can tuck your little letter in there. A lot of times I like to send little scriptures to my people, or inspirational quotes, or I send stickers sometimes, or whatever I, think is fun. So that's why I added the pocket. So there is a reason why I did that. So I'm just gonna find a piece of, okay, I'll use, so you don't want, I did one that was, I liked the one I did that was kind of diagonal. So I'm gonna do it like that, and I'm gonna flip it over. Oh, it's pretty on the other side too. Sometimes that's the hard part about Graphic45 papers. You're like, which side is prettier? Which side should I use? Because sometimes it's almost impossible to decide which side to use because they're all so pretty. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this out real quick. And make sure you kind of trace this along the bottom of your heart, because your heart is not going to be a consistent size. But then again, if you used a die to cut your heart, you could just use the die to cut the pocket, or you can do your pocket another way that you like. Okay, so we're going to open this up, and we're going to find the front because we don't want to glue this on the wrong side. Get my pencil out of the way. And we're just going to line that up like this. And I just took, for this one I used, believe it or not, this is art glitter glue, but I mean, I've been using it for a while. So I'm going to mark my spot where I want my pocket to go, and I'm just going to make a very faint line, and then I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to just do a little line. And the reason I use the art glitter glue for this is it dries really quickly, and that is going to be ideal. Oh, don't forget to ink the top of your pocket. And you could always do a little, you know how they do a little like a half circle there for a pocket. I'm just not going to do it for this one. I didn't do it for the other cards. So, okay, and then we're just gonna, or as Natasha from Treasure Books would say, glue it down. I love Natasha from Treasure Books. I don't know if you guys have ever watched her. She is so funny. She has so many ideas. Like, honestly, I'll tell you that this stitch on the heart, this specific stitch, she uses that a lot and it looks so pretty, you know. And I was like, oh, I want to use that stitch because first of all, it kind of looks like a heartbeat, you know what I mean? So, and this is a heart, so it kind of makes sense, you know. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to go, and by the time I sew around this pocket, by the time I sew around the front, the back should be dry enough for me to sew around the back. Okay, so now we're back with our little heart shape. Now, two things. So I did mess up a little bit on this one. What I had done before, let me show you this is the embossing folder I used. So this is just a Tim Holtz like wood grain 3D embossing folder. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that heart does not fit. And you'd be correct. So this is what I did. I left it folded in half. I put my heart all the way to the edge. I closed it, and this just barely fits into my big shot because the big shot is 6 inches wide. So this plus this hanging out the edge were just barely 6 inches. That's why I cut my paper to 6 inches, okay? Because that's what fits through my big shot. So I ran it through like this. I then opened it. I pushed this over to this side. I closed it again and I ran it through again. So that embossed the front and the back. I mean, I don't know how that works. It works really well. I was like, I don't know if that's going to work, but I did it anyway just to try like what it's going to hurt, and it worked. And I think it gave it like, can you see that it looks really crepey? Isn't that cute how it looks crepey like that? Looks like you made it out of crepe paper. It just like marries this onto the craft paper, I think. Okay, so that's a Tim Holtz wood grain. I think this is a 3D embossing folder that's just like wood grain. Okay, and I don't know what I do to make my things do that, but I do. But anyways, okay, moving on. Okay, and then the only thing I did, like if you notice with this one and with this one, I glued my pocket on before I ran it through the machine. So my pocket is embossed as well. So it's up to you if you'd like your pocket not embossed or embossed. And then you basically want to emboss it first and then sew it. You can sew it first and then emboss it, but it might mess up your sew line, make it a little bit bumpier than what you want. And then just as a reminder, when you're running, this is the back side. If you can see this one, this is the front. So that's running it through your sewing machine with this part, this face up. And so this is what it's going to look like on the underside. When you go through with the inner face of your card, you want to make sure that the top stitch is on this side and that you don't run it through like this, because then you'll get this back stitch on a side where people look. So you don't want that, I assume. If you do want that, you know what, you go for it. Okay, so now that I've explained that half to death, let me when I do my cards, there's a couple of like, I know I'm jiggling the camera, I'm sorry. There's a couple of rules that I like to go by, and one of the things is I always like to put down a fiber. So I always like there to be a ribbon, a material, or something of that nature. Now this is super thin, so if you're worried about making sure it's flat enough to mail, a ribbon like this is a really, really good idea, especially with how much they're charging to mail packages. I made some little folios, and so I couldn't send them as a letter, and I had to send them like in a bubble mailer, and they cost so much money. Like sending one of them was like $7. Not gonna lie, it was insane. Okay, but it's worth it. You know what I mean? It's worth it. Okay, and then I'm gonna save all of these and I'll show you what I'm gonna do with those. Sorry, I bumped the thing again. I'll try to put my camera in a different spot next time. So now this you can see on this side. I don't know if you can see that. It's like silver on this side and it's gold on this side. So just make sure the gold side is showing. It's always nice to have a little. Now, as far as embellishing these, you can embellish them any way you want. However you like, whatever you want. I had this that, you know, you just have this stuff in your stash and it's just around. And then I have this also that I had in my stash, which is really pretty, and I've just used it little by little, and I just cut off a little chunk of it. I don't want it to be too wide. And then I make one side longer than the other. So I take my long side and I'm just gonna make a little, and this has like these little fringes, so I made sure like the little fringes showed. Now, this is basically what you would call like a little collage, okay? So I'll give you a couple of examples. So we basically have the same elements, but each card is a little bit unique, you see? So you have your fibers, which is what I'm calling this. You have your black lace, just to kind of set it off. You have your craft paper here, and then you have your focal point. And then I just have a little heart punch, and that's what all these little embellishments like here are, that are kind of going around the paper and things, okay? So this is basically what it's gonna look like, and I don't glue this down, and I'll explain why in a second. So first of all, what we're gonna do is what I did for that craft paper is basically, this paper is great. Never throw this away. This comes like, they crinkle this up and put it in your Amazon packages, and it's just the right, you know, consistency and like thinness, and it just really works with a lot of different things. So here's my paper. Now, all I did was I took that cardstock that came with an Amazon package, and I just have this stamp, and this, all it says on it is the year 2000 Stampin' Up. And I'm telling you, with a stamp like this, you're going to use this a million times. I know you have stamps in your stash that you thought you would use and you never use them, but a stamp like this you will use all the time. It's a great background stamp. I mean, you'll never stop using it. So the next time you see that at a secondhand store, make sure you get it. Okay, so then I'm going to take this paper, I'm going to just do a little crinkle. I'm going to take my black ink dauber, and I'm just going to kind of run it over and try to get us some marks on that, make it look a little bit sooty, a little bit, you know, vintage, a little bit like it was a piece of a love letter that just, you know, got lost. And then that's going to go there. And then I already picked this Jetome. My cousin, when we were in high school, she liked this guy named Shane, and they were taking like high school French together, and whenever they left each other, they would say Jetome to each other, because I guess they loved each other, whatever. And then and this was like the very early 90s or late 80s, and they had been like going out for a long time, and you know, they always were saying Jetome to each other and saying that they loved each other, whatever, and like they were gonna get married. And then Shane got a mullet, and then he permed the mullet, and that was the end of that. Okay, now I'm gonna cut this so it can create a little frame. So if you see like how this looks, it's a little focal point, and then I put this little red frame just to set it off. You could use a black frame, you could have used a cream frame, you could use a gold frame if you like a lot of bling. I'm just going to use this dark red, and I'm just going to trim it down. And okay, so now I have all my things here. Nothing is glued down. The one thing I am going to glue down is I'm going to take my little crinkled paper and I'm going to just put, and I'm going to be kind of generous with the glue because I want it to go down underneath my fibers, my fiber ribbon, but I don't want to just glue this flat. I want it to have a little bit of texture to it. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of try to let that glue dry, and that was with my art glitter glue, obviously. And then I'm going to take my focal point, and since my focal point is probably going to go right kind of here. Okay, I did not like that focal point because it was not fitting with my paper how I wanted to do it. And I mean, that's, you know, part of making cards is like sometimes the spacing isn't quite correct, and so you have to kind of change a little bit midstream. I'm trying to find the old one to show you. So this one was oriented this way, and I just felt like it was, in order to space it, do you see how that's a little bit, in order to space it, I'd kind of have to be too much over this really pretty crinkled paper. And I know what you're thinking, like it got dark right here where I put the glue. That does dry up. I'll show you on like this one. You see, you can't see it anymore once it dries up, so that's all good. I was worried about that when I first did it. Okay, so I'm just going to ink the edges. I chose this kind of narrow, tall one, and you see how that's going to go right there. But I don't want to crush my paper all the way down, but also keeping in mind that you want to mail this if in fact that is what you would like to do. I'm just tearing pieces off of an old or a shoe box. My husband got me a pair of shoes for Christmas, so I'm just using that box for to give it some lift. So I'm just going to cut a couple pieces here. Okay. Okay, let me clear this off so you can't see the mess that my desk is in. Okay, so if I want it to go here, I definitely want a piece under here to kind of hold it above those crinkles, and then I probably want to put a piece right there. Sometimes I make marks where I want to put my items so that I don't put it on the wrong edge, because that, I mean, that's just, you know. And I do use my my art glitter glue for this type of deal because, again, it dries very quickly. For gluing my my centerpiece, I did use my tape runner that I got at a secondhand store for $2. What were they thinking selling this for $2? But I got it for $2. Anyways, okay, so now we have this and this. Now we're gonna have to put a piece right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this in half, and I'm going to put another piece right here, and I will explain why. So this is basically going to go like this, and these pieces are what are going to glue your fibers down. So this kind of glued your under fibers, but this is still pretty, like this isn't really glued to anything. You could probably just pull that out. I don't want to because it'll mess it up. And I like to use hot glue for this. My new hot glue gun. It's beautiful. My husband got that for me for Christmas. And then, okay, so put my hot glue on. And then I just want to make sure. Now it's kind of a little bit tricky with a heart-shaped card because it's like, how do you know that you're, you know. And this piece is what's really going to hold that down. I don't know. I feel like that's a piece of cardboard poking out. Hold on. Let me get a poker and poke it back in. No, no, no. No, no, no. There we go. Okay, so then we glue that piece in. Press down firmly, and basically your front is done. Now you could always do a sentiment. You could do a little, I don't know, whatever sentiment. If you have a happy Valentine's Day, if you have love, If you have whatever you want, you can always put a sentiment in there. Or if you're just sending this to someone as a thank you card, you could put a thanks on it. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Now we're going to take the inside of our card. This is really simple. This, I just feel like this adds a lot to, you know, this little pocket, and I really like the pockets I did that were diagonal. And again, I'm going to use my art glitter glue because again, it just dries really quickly. And I'm just gonna, and you don't even really have to press it down, you know, you don't have to, like, I don't put any glue on this part. I just put it right on the top where the, you know, it's a little bit more concentrated. And then I take my scissors and I just kind of trim around the lace. And you could it'd probably be better to wait until it's a little bit, until the glue has dried. And then what I was doing, and again, the beauty of Graphic45 paper is you have so many options. Now I'm gonna find, this is from the chipboard. You see, you could put that there and put a little ribbon through it. Or, let's see, I had some, let me show you what I was doing on the other cards. I'm digging through my, if you guys could see what this pile of paper scraps looked like, you'd be like, girl, clean your craft table. Okay, so on the inside of these ones, I had these little things, if you see that, and I was using those little square things, which I'm sure I have one, so I'll put it on there. I just don't want to, like, I mean, you guys know how to embellish. And then I have this heart punch, which again, I got at a secondhand store. This is old, and for some reason it locks. And I keep thinking, what a dumb feature. Like, does it really matter, like, when you put this away, if the button is like this or like this? Like, that's how far it locks. I'm like, okay, well, thank goodness it locks. Anyways, I'm being a snot, but anyways, okay, so I just take my paper, punch out some hearts here, and I do it this way just because I like to see the underside so you can kind of like gauge where you're at on your paper, because if you're just doing it like this, you have no idea where the heart is because you can't see it. And this way you can get them a little bit closer together and get a few more hearts out of your little machine thing here. And then I'll probably do, let me see this, I'll do a couple of these ones just to give some different colors. And okay, all right, so we have a couple hearts, and I did ink my heart edges. Here, let me clear this off so you can't see what a mess it is. Okay. And so I did this, and then I put just, again, a little bit of art glitter glue on there, and I kind of tucked them in, you know, had them like coming out here and there. And this one I definitely need to just curve it a little to go along with the curve of the paper, so it's sure to stick down without pressing your texture down too much. And I know, you know, you're going to be mailing this, but you know, the more you can preserve the texture now, the more will be preserved once someone gets the card that you're sending them. So, you know, this is kind of the fun part. This is the part you guys, you know how to do this. This is what we like to do. This is why we make cards. So you just put your little hearts around there, you know, wherever you like them. If you just want to put one or two on one of the cards, I just put 2 hearts here. I'll just do that here since I can't find my little squares I was using. And Graphic45 has like chipboard pieces you could use. They have, I just didn't happen to use them for this particular project. But, you know, they have stickers, they have, you could have, you know, used a sticker. Kind of hard to put a sticker down on lace, but if you put a little glue behind the sticker just so there's something liquid to kind of stick to the material of the lace. So yeah, you just do this, and then this is, you know, a little pocket. And you can put your, take your letter, stick it in there. Fold it up, stick it in there, stick your little note, put a gift card in there, however you like. And so there we go. So that is how you make a vintage heart Valentine's card with the Paper Collections Mon Amor collection from Graphic45 and the Elegance collection. And I'll just show you those cards one more time. Here's the one we made on screen today. Let me stand up so I can see what I'm doing. So here's the one we made today. This is one of the chipboard pieces that I used for this card. Look at this handsome fella. Isn't he handsome? What a handsome fella. Oh, I wanted to show you guys this one. This is just one that this is what it looks like if you don't sew. So if you don't have a sewing machine and you don't want to sew, you can see it's still gorgeous. You can still put those embellishments on and it would be beautiful. You can still add your pocket, add your lace on your pocket, and you don't need to do any sewing. So that's always possible there. So I just wanted to show you that as an example. And here we go, just a few more just to give you some inspiration. And again, they look so pretty all together, and I know they're kind of like uniform. This one, I was at Hobby Lobby and they had this really pretty cheesecloth because I always like to have a fiber. So that was the first one I did with the fibers, and then I started using the other pink stuff with like the little bit of gold bling on it. So anyways, those are my Valentine cards I made to show you today. I hope you got a lot of inspiration and enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope it will inspire you to make your own Valentine cards. And thanks for watching. See you next time.